live from the new sports betting capital of the world.
You might be from Texas, but I'm from New Jersey.
Benny Ricciardi is here to break down the day's betting board for you.
Let's go, Jerry. Go!
Taking a first look at the day's bets, it's time for the FTN Betting Show. Welcome to the FTN Betscast for Friday, June 10th here at FTN Bets and sponsored by our friends over at Sleeper. Sleeper is the fastest growing fantasy platform today with millions of players, and now you could win on Sleeper by playing in their new over-under game. It's super simple to play. So first, in any sport, you're going to choose two or more players that you like and pick whether they're going to go over or under whatever their listed total is. So for example, tonight could be the number of points, could be the number of assists, the number of turnovers, the number of points plus rebounds plus assists. Then you're going to choose an amount of money that you want to put into that contest. And if you pick correctly, you can win anywhere from 2 times your money all the way up to 20 times your money if you go 5 out of 5 and get them all correct. But the main reason why I'm excited about this over-under game on Sleeper, it is the only app where I can join my buddies' contest and we can all play together. It has a built-in group chat where I can see what you're playing, you can see what I'm playing. We could all see what the guy who's won a couple days in a row in our group is playing. And it's insanely fun when everybody is writing it out together and rooting for the same things. So stop what you're doing now and download Sleeper to play in their new over-under game. Have fun with your friends and make a little money in the process. On your mobile phone, you can join our listener group on Sleeper at sleeper.com/FTN bets. And Sleeper will automatically match your first deposit up to $100. Again, look down in the description and you'll see it there. Sleeper.com/FTN bets. Click that link and you'll be eligible for the $100 match on your first deposit. There are terms and conditions that apply, so see Sleeper's terms of use for those details. Today, we're going to talk about Game 4 of the NBA Finals with the Boston Celtics at home and up 2-1 in this series after a victory in Game 3. Now, big news here today on the injury front. It looks like Steph Curry is going to play, but we do have to mention that late in that game, he got rolled up on his ankle by Al Horford. Very serious situation because remember, Steph Curry about 2 months ago against Boston also had a very similar thing happen where he had his ankle rolled up on by Marcus Smart that time. So this is kind of a re-aggravation of the injury that kept him out for, I don't know, the last 2 or 3 weeks of the NBA season here. And even the beginning of the playoffs where he was coming off the bench as he was still rounding into shape. Now, I know that Steph Curry is going to make sure that he plays here tonight. The question that we have, and frankly, we don't really have an answer to is this ankle going to affect him at all? Is he going to be uncomfortable and not be able to blow by people and get to the basket like we're used to him seeing? Is he not going to be able to get the lift on his jump shot? I don't know. Maybe he's 100% fine. Maybe people are overreacting to this altogether, but it's definitely not good when you see a guy go out. After the injury happened, he was pulled out of the game. Steve Kerr said, he pulled him out because it was like a 15-point game with like 3 minutes left, and he didn't think they were going to come back anyway, which, you know what? I mean, maybe there is a little bit to that as well, but you would have assumed that even in that situation, a healthy Steph Curry would have been out there on the floor, firing up late game threes, trying to get the Golden State Warriors back in it. So do I think it's something that is going to completely change the series? I'm not sure. If he's hurt, it definitely is something that's going to change the series. But I do think he's going to be out there. We'll see if he can play well enough to get it done. Again, just wanted to throw that out there before we start getting into any of the numbers here. So the game tonight, Boston opened as a minus 3.5 point favorite. You can still find 3.5 out there in the market. BetMGM has been slow to move it. What they did is they actually did move it. So I shouldn't say they've been slow to move it. They juiced up the 3.5 to minus 115. Everybody else in the market, DraftKings, FanDuel, both have it at -4. PointsBet -4. DraftKings, I'm sorry, FanDuel is actually juiced down a little bit, -4, -108. And then you have other sites like Unibet and Bet Rivers that have it at 4.5, juiced up a little bit. So, if you're looking to play Boston here, you can still get that -3.5, -115 at BetMGM. That would be the place that I went and tried to play this today. If you're on the Golden State Warriors side, the road team here, you can get them as high as 4.5 points, as we mentioned on Unibet and Bet Rivers. Actually, it's juiced down the -4.5 for Boston, the +4.5 for Golden State Warriors, juiced up a little bit at -113. Unibet, Bet Rivers, Sugar House, the best place you can play that Golden State Warriors to get that hook with the +4.5, juiced up a little bit at -113. If you prefer the 110s, there is a couple +4s -110 out there, but I'd rather have the +4.5 at -113. Give up a couple basis points and get that hook there so that if it's a 4, I get a win instead of a push. So let's see. If I had to pick a side in this game, I'm going to stick with the Boston Celtics side, especially if you can get them at -3.5. I know our boy Frank Brank has the Boston Celtics about 2 points better on a neutral floor, which means on the home court, you should see something more like 4.5, 5. So even at 3.5, this is probably a little bit below where the market probably should be. So I do like the Boston Celtics -3.5. Took that over at BetMGM at that -115. Like I said, every other site moved it up to 4.5 already. So if you want to get it on BetMGM, get over there and try to get it now, because I have a feeling it's going to move, which makes sense considering that it's already been juiced up from -110 to -115. The next move might be, -4 at -110 or something like that. So get in before it moves to there. As for the total in this game, that opened at 215.5. It's down a little bit. You could play an over 214. Bet Rivers, Sugar House, Unibet all have this at -109. Most of the rest of the books out there have the 214 number at -110 standard juice. So that is pretty much a consensus number out there in the market. If you want to play the under, it is 214.5. Bet MGM has that -110 at 214.5. So best place to play the under, Bet MGM. If you want to play an over, go to Bet Rivers, Sugar House, or Unibet. I mean, again, it's 1 basis point, but you'd rather play it at -109 than -110 if you have the option. So that is where you can get the best number on the total here. So let's see. I mean, it's been an interesting series. The first game, the total was 228, went way over. Celtics got super hot in the fourth quarter and just knocked down a ton of threes, and that's how we got to that 228. Game 2 was a 195 total. That was a 20-point blowout by the Golden State Warriors at home there. We figured they were going to bounce back after losing in game 1 and wind up picking up game 2. So 195 points in that game there. And then the third game, the one that we just saw here, finished with 216. And it was interesting, right? Because 216, I think, was what that game might have opened at. It's basically been bouncing around between 211 and like 216 has kind of been the high for the series. And like 210, 211 has kind of been the low. But the number should settle somewhere in between that. And I think that's a good number. And that's exactly where we are today, too, right? Like 214.5. I don't really have a lean to the over or under here. If I had to choose one, I would probably say if Steph Curry is healthy, I would go over. If he's not healthy, I would go under because, he's bad defensively and very good offensively, which means that he's going to be a guy that is, and he also helps the pace. So he's going to be a guy that's positive for the over because of his scoring, his lack of defense, and the fact that he will help Golden State play faster. If he's not out there on the floor, well, that takes away his scoring. Yeah, the defense will be better as well, so it's going to be harder for Boston to score, and the game will probably be played at a slower pace. And all three of those things would point to an under. So if Steph Curry's in there, my lean would be over. If he doesn't play, my lean would be under. But really, I think 214 is a really good number. Like I said, 211, 216. That's kind of been the range this series has floating around. And I think it did get down to 210 in one game, but it got bid up a little bit there as well. So 210 to 216 is really the range. And as long as the number's in between there, I don't really think there's any value for us to mess with. So now let's move on and talk about some of the player props here. There are a few player props that I'm interested in. Again, some of them I like a little bit better on the sports books where the odds are good. Some of the ones with the big odds that we like are better plays to play over on our partner's sleeper, because over there, you really just have to get 2 of these things right. And if you have some of these things that are -130, -140, we're talking like 57, 58% implied probability of happening. You link 2 of those things together, you're going to have a much better chance of cashing one of these 2-leg contest plays over on sleeper, or even a 3, 4, and 5-leg contest play if you're looking to take on a little more risk and give yourself a little more upside. So the first one that I'm going to be looking at here today is going to be Andrew Wiggins over 5.5 rebounds. This is -140 right now on BetMGM. It's -135 to -121 on every other book that's out there as well. He had 5 rebounds in game 1, 6 in game 2, 7 in game 3. So he's averaging 6 rebounds for the series, which is the number that we need him to get here. Regular season, he averaged 5 rebounds per game. And he did that in about 32 minutes. He's averaged 35 minutes in the series. And the two games that didn't turn into blowouts, he played 35 and 40 minutes, which is more like 37 to 38 minutes on the average, which is what he averaged in the Dallas series, 37 minutes there as well. The reason why I tell you about these minutes averages, again, if a guy averaged 5 rebounds during the regular season and now he's getting anywhere between 4 and 8 extra minutes per game, you would expect that the number of rebounds that he's going to average with that extra court time is going to go up. So that extra 4 to 8 minutes per game is why I'm a little more comfortable with him over this 5.5 with numbers like -140, -135 on a lot of the sports books. This is not one that I'm looking to play on the sports books, but I do think it's an interesting play for the sleeper app. So Andrew Wiggins over 5.5 rebounds, something I'm looking at over on sleeper today. Next one I want to talk about, Jordan Poole under 11.5 points. This is even money on BetMGM. The over is the one that's actually like -120, -125. He played 24 minutes last game. He's basically been playing about that many every game of the series. He should have played less in game 2, as was expected, and he would have if it didn't turn into a blowout, and he would have been under as well if he didn't get those late points in there. Unless Steph Curry is out, I don't see Jordan Poole getting any more minutes in this series. If anything, I think Jordan Poole might see less minutes than we've seen so far. You know, what Golden State has been doing is they've been putting out there a more defensive lineup out there, especially when you have Robert Williams and Al Horford on the floor at the same time for the Boston Celtics. When both of those guys are on the floor, Golden State has to counter with Kevon Looney and Draymond Green. Otherwise, they're giving up a huge rebounding advantage if they don't. If they decided they wanted to go small and put Jordan Poole out on the floor a little more, it gives them a little more scoring, but it also hurts them on the other end. And Poole has not been super efficient so far this series. So I understand why he's playing a little less. And then you also got to worry about a guy like Gary Payton III or Otto Porter. You know, like those guys have been coming in and stealing a couple minutes as well. And those minutes, those shot attempts, all the things that they do out there on the floor kind of come at the detriment of Jordan Poole, since they're normally out on the floor when Poole is a lot of times with that second unit, with the exception of Peyton, who does play with the first unit sometimes. But again, when he's on the floor with the first unit, he's there more to defend and make layups than he is to really suck up too much of the offensive, the offensive workload here. So I am not a big fan of Jordan Poole in this series. Getting him at even money on BetMGM to play under 11.5 points. So 11 points or less for him is what we're looking for. Next one I want to talk about, Jaylen Brown over 3.5 assists. This is -115 on FanDuel. It's -130 to -135 on all the other books out there. So I don't even mind this on Sleeper because that's like a 56, 57% implied probability of happening here. Game 1 and game 3, he played about 39 minutes on average, and he finished with 5 assists in both of those games. Game 2, he only had 3 assists, so under the 3.5 we would need today. But he played just 28 minutes in that game as he sat most of the fourth quarter with the Celtics up big. I mean, with the Celtics down big in game 2 was the way that went. He averaged 3.5 assists per game in 34 minutes of action during the regular season. Again, when the games are close, he's been playing closer to 38 to 40 minutes in the postseason. Gives him a little chance to get a bump up on that number. And a bump up on that number puts him over the 3.5 that we're looking at here today. So I really like Jaylen Brown, FanDuel, -115 for over 3.5 assists. He's averaging over 4 assists in the series already, has 13 in 3 games. This is something that I really want to get some money down on. And I like it. I don't hate it on Sleeper today, but I like it more over on FanDuel to just play it straight up on the sports books. Another thing I'm looking at here for the Boston Celtics is going to be our boy Marcus Smart, over 2.5 turnovers for Marcus Smart. Smart had 5 turnovers in each of the last 2 games. So not only is he going over 2.5, but he's going over 2.5 by a pretty wide margin in recent games. Only 2 books have this number up. It's -125 at BetMGM. It's -130 at DraftKings to go over 2.5. You could also play this on the Sleeper app over 2.5 turnovers as well. So I like Marcus Smart to have over 2.5 turnovers this game. He's on the floor more. The ball's in his hands quite a bit. You know, bad pass here, bad pass there. Maybe somebody strips him when he goes to the basket or something. You could easily get to those 3 turnovers here. And like I said, he's had 5 in each of the last 2 games. So over 2.5 Marcus Smart turnovers today. Another one I like and something I'd be interested in on the Sleeper app as well. And that brings us to my last one here, which is going to be Robert Williams over 6.5 points. This is -130 on both DraftKings and Caesars right now. FanDuel actually moved it up to 7.5 points, although they also juiced it up a little bit to like +110, I think, which is also the equivalent of basically being at like 6.5 points at like a -110, -115, somewhere in that range. He had 8 points in game 1. He had 8 points in game 3. Played 24 and 26 minutes in those 2 games. Game 2, he only had 2 points, but he only played 14 minutes in that game. It did turn into a blowout at the end. They kind of rested their guys. And Williams is one of the guys they're going to rest if a game turns into a blowout one way or another, because he's already playing with a banged up knee. But again, with that banged up knee in game 1 and game 3, he was able to play more than half the game, 24 plus 26 minutes. So I like Robert Williams to go over 8 points, actually over 6.5. So 7 points or more in today's game. Remember, he did have 8 in 2 of the 3 games of the series so far. So there you go. That breaks it down for all the player props that I have some interest in here today. One last thing we're going to do, as we always do, let's finish the show with our sleeper play of the day here. Remember, description of this podcast, sleeper.com/FTN bets. It's down in the description. You click on that link. It'll bring you to our group chat and will make you eligible for that $100 deposit match on the first $100 that you put in on your first deposit over at Sleeper. So for me, the first thing I'm going to be looking at here is going to be Andrew Wiggins over 5.5 rebounds. We told you guys this was as high as -140 on BetMGM, -135 down to -121 and all the other sites out there in the market. He's averaging 6 rebounds per game, had 5, 6, and 7 in the first 3 games. And he's playing more minutes than the 32 he averaged during the regular season, where he basically averaged 5 rebounds during the regular season as well. So I like the over Andrew Wiggins 5.5 rebounds here today as my first sleeper play. And then the second one is going to be Marcus Smart over 2.5 turnovers. Like I said, he cleared this number easily in the last 2 games with 5 turnovers in each of those. This is as high as -130 on sites like MGM and DraftKings. I like this as the second leg of my sleeper play. So Andrew Wiggins over 5.5 rebounds, Marcus Smart over 2.5 turnovers. And remember, you deposit $100, you get the full deposit match. You now have $200 to play with. You put it on this, you're going to get a payout of $600 back. That means you're going to turn $100 out of pocket into $600 for a plus 500 return. Very tough to find that kind of a return on any 2-leg parlay. That isn't something that's like -300 or -400 on the sports book. But over in the sleeper contest for a 2-leg contest play, you can get plus 500 odds here today by signing up and playing over at sleeper.com. So there you go. That's going to wrap it up for today's FTN Bets cast. This is Benny Ricciardi for FTN Bets, sponsored by our friends over at Sleeper. Good luck today, everybody.
Live from the new sports betting capital of the world.
You might be from Texas, but I'm from New Jersey.